What's the only thing harder than scaling a D2C brand in 2025? Doing it while managing your own manufacturing and raising three little kids. Want to learn how today's guest is pulling off such an amazing feat? Then you're not going to want to miss this. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the To Grow CFO Podcast, where we dive deep into conversations about scaling a profitable D2C brand. I'm your host, Jon Blair, founder of To Grow CFO. We're the go-to outsourced finance and accounting firm for 8 and 9-figure D2C brands. And today, I'm here with my friend, To Grow CFO client, mom of three little ones, founder of Redland Cotton, Anna Brakefield. Anna, how are you?
Good. Like we said, we're a little bit tired, but we're here and we're breathing.
Yes, both parents of three little kids. I was actually a little nervous saying the intro there because I know that you've listened to the podcast before, and I'm like, oh
hmm
man, Anna's hearing me do this like live. I don't want to mess this up. But man, I'm so grateful to have you here. I think we've only ever had like one other client on the show, and like I really wanted to chat with you because Redland Cotton just has a great story. When I first met you, before you had decided to start working with us, I was looking at your website and I sat down and watched a bunch of the great videos you guys have on the site about the Redland Cotton story. And I was just like, yes, this is a brand that I want Free to Grow to work with. This is awesome. And so before we dive into chatting today about the myriad of things that I think you've got some really helpful opinions and insights on that could help the brand founders that listen to the show, walk us through your background and your journey to ultimately founding Redland Cotton and going on this scaling journey that we found you on.
Yeah. So my journey is a little circular and it it wasn't intentional. So my goal was to never come back to the farm. I didn't want to be part of the family business. In high school, I was very creative. I started my own portrait. I did pastel portraiture, and I did portraits for clients and started my own bank account when I was 16. And I was determined that I was going to go to college and then I was going to move to New York. And I went to college at Auburn University and I got a degree in graphic design. And I moved directly after graduating to New York City to work in advertising. But while I was in Auburn, I met the guy that would be my husband, and and he went to pharmacy school. So he essentially finished up pharmacy school while I was living in New York, and we got engaged in 2012 and moved to the Nashville area where he was doing his residency. And I like when I was living and working in New York, I was working for clients like BMW, American Express. I did some work for Jay-Z. And so I was used to like big, big work, important work, and, getting accolades. And like I was doing the thing. And I moved to Nashville, Tennessee and got married. And it was one of those moments like, what have I done to my life? Um, and I'm so sure that Nashville has gotten so much better since like 2014, 2015. But at that time, I was doing creative work for like an old folks home. And like the most exciting stuff I was doing was like pro bono work. And I was like, I have like whatever I've traded my goals for something else. And my dad took notice of this, and in 2015, so I got married in July of 2015. It's going to be 10 years coming up, and
Nice.
yeah, and then we started talking about the idea that would be Redland Cotton in the Christmas of that year. I mentioned my husband was doing his residency. That was exceptionally hard. I kept my my job that was funding the the lifestyle that my husband and I were keeping together at that point until May of 2016. And then he got his job, and I was able to quit and go Redland Cotton full time. But that's kind of the journey that took me back to the farm. Like I didn't want to get back here, but somehow I got sucked back into it. But I think if I had not taken that kind of circular journey, I wouldn't have been able to bring all of the things that make Redland Cotton successful. So that's kind of
I love that. There,
the
there,
high level view of how we got
there,
here.
there are so many things I want to ask you about that, but I do want to say like there's a couple brands that we work with. I think I mentioned this to you when we first met that there was this legacy family business that had existed for a generation or a couple generations, and then the newest generation was like, hey, why don't we sell any of this great stuff that our family's been doing forever direct to consumer? Like it's the new way, right? And so your family being a family that, had been doing cotton farming for a long time, how did you decide to get it? Like what were kind of some of the key things that kind of sparked the idea of like getting into direct to consumer linens?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, from my dad's perspective, so my dad's been farming since the early 80s, farming cotton, corn, and cattle. And cotton has always been historically the history of cotton. Somebody has been getting screwed to um, make it a thing. And you know, in America, we have very high standards. There are $1 million machines that pick the cotton, but it's not getting processed here anymore, and that's because of labor. And so I looked at the stats the other day. There was about 14 million um, bales of cotton grown in the United States, and only 4 million were processed domestically, um, which puts all of the pressure on the American farmer to compete with Pakistan and China because they have to export all of their cotton to those places. And then it all comes right back. Um, but I say that to say the reason why my dad wanted to start Redland Cotton was to go more vertical with his crop and kind of reap more of the reward of the fiber. Because as a cotton farmer, you're subject to the commodities price.
yeah.
Um, and our first product was bed sheets because that would surely consume the most cotton of any good, you know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so that really it wasn't just a ton more deep than that.
So given that you guys are a core part of your business model or your operational model, I'll say, is like, manufacturing and processing in the States, beyond what you've already kind of just very initially touched on, how important is that, owning that in the States or managing that in the States, to your brand and or overall business strategy?
From the business strategy side, and for the viability of the American farmer, it's very important that we at least keep some cotton manufacturing here, or there already is a lack of demand to keep cotton growing here. So, so that was a core reason why we wanted to be American made. And then second to that is there are a lot of bedding brands out there. Um, Sheets are almost and bedding is almost commoditized as the raw cotton product. So creating a supply chain that we could walk our customer through and show the transparency and show um, the the why behind the product, the people behind the product, was to me core to making the business successful. Because if we did not have that, if we did not have the story element behind the sheets, then it's just a sheet. made like everybody else's sheet, or bedding product. So that is the why. And I think it has been the most challenging part of our business, but also the reason why we are successful.
So, as you were talking, I was making some notes because I realized there's actually a lot of parallels to our strategy at Guardian Bike. So today, Guardian has a factory in Indiana and is rolling out fulfillment centers all around the country. But there was a lot of intentionality behind why we did that. That's very similar to what you're talking about, or at least some of the things you're talking about. One, we chose to go to the direct to consumer channel because you can't tell the story of a safer kids bike because of our brakes in a Walmart kids bike aisle. And Walmart is where most of the kids bike volume is sold. That was the first thing. Direct to consumer, we could tell the story about why you are purchasing this higher quality, safer bike for your kids that's made in America and why that really does actually matter. Second, so that's the sales channel. We actually decided to make everything in the States, which took several years. I mean, it's taken well over 5, 6 years and a lot of capital. But the reason that we chose to do that was because there was the incentives of the bike brands, right, to make the other big bike brands out there that sell most of the volume. Their biggest customer is Walmart, which is demanding a rock bottom price point
Mm-hmm.
and is creating all this competition across the different brands. And so what they're doing is making these incredibly poor quality and dangerous kids bikes in China, mostly in China. And so for us to bring a quality bike, which we felt was actually better and safer for the consumer and a better experience to teach your kids how to ride a bike, we had to choose to go direct to consumer so we could tell the story. And we had to choose to do the capital intensive thing, which was make the bike ourselves so that we could actually control the quality. And so there's definitely some parallels there to what you just mentioned. You also mentioned this is being vertically integrated, although it's a strategic value add, it's also one of the biggest challenges. What are some of the biggest challenges that come to mind that come alongside like managing your own manufacturing and processing operation in the States?
Initially it is the quality control aspect is pretty challenging when you're managing multiple aspects of the supply chain, because it isn't just one piece. It's not like we're just managing assembly. We're managing through yarn spinning, through weaving, finishing, and there's so many rooms for error.
Yeah.
Um, and and sometimes that can really eat your lunch. Um, and from a margin perspective, and then the second the second thing, and it just hurts me when this happens, is that we will have potential for more sales or more volume and can't get it through our supply chain. And that's what happened in 2020. Um, a, a very familiar story. I mean, our sales were through the roof and we couldn't make it. And I mean, that was everybody's story, right? It wasn't just ours. And honestly, we were pretty uniquely positioned to just create a factory here in the United States. So we started our first factory in 2020 in very southern rural Mississippi. And we kind of did the same thing last year. We acquired a cut and sew plant that had been working for us um, since 2017 and brought it under our control and our roof and invested in just some very minimal infrastructure and increased this essentially same workforce's output by 100%. But it's that ownership of the supply chain and the capital that has to go into it that constricts other areas of the business. So where I see a lot of peers that are also running um, D2C brands, they're growing they have a chief growth officer and, a CMO and all of these other things. And I have two factories.
Yeah.
And then for a large part until like the last year and a half, like I was largely doing everything very much myself with a handful of solid employees with no fancy titles.
Okay, so this segues nicely into the kind of topic I want to talk about which is when I first met you, like we talked a lot about the many different hats that you had worn in the business up to that point, right? And it was impressive to see where you got the business in terms of size wearing all those hats. But what were some of the things that started happening, or some of the thoughts or kind of decisions that you started going through, mulling over in your head, that ultimately got you to the point where you're like, I need to start building a team to get to the next level?
Yeah. You know, I brought you guys on and hired a operations, um, I guess I would call her an operations director, just to work alongside me. I brought you guys on at almost the same time, maybe even the same month. Um, but I have been pushing that entire year for some help because I felt it. And I think I had felt where my limit was. And to me, the financial piece was the most important to me. That I have a partner that can help me see the financials and explain them to other people in my company too, so that we can all make decisions together. Because prior to bringing you guys on, we were using an accountant and a tax accountant. And I hear you talk about it all the time. Like y'all, you get the books that tax accountants are keeping, and it's all based on cash, and inventory is not taken into consideration, and it's just kind of a crap show. And for me, what I was doing every month is I was reviewing, Jon, every single transaction that came through on our credit card, on our bank statement. And I had this spreadsheet that I had kept for the last 4 years. And that's how I was managing our finances and comparing year over year. But there was no structure or growth goals or anything like that. Essentially, like the growth goal was just to stay afloat. And at that status, I felt like I was drowning. So that was the reason why I was like, I have to have a financial team. And I don't know how I found you guys. Maybe it was a podcast. Um, and then I needed somebody to help me with operations because mistakes were happening.
For sure.
And I think, yeah, when mistakes start to happen, it's kind of like, well, it's time to call in somebody else to help you out.
For sure. Well, so a couple of things I want to kind of like tease out of what you just said. One is not having inventory. I mean, first off, like all D2C brands, inventory based, tracking inventory is super important from a financial standpoint. But you guys, I would say, even have it's even more important because you're running a factory, right? Or a couple factories. Like, and so that's super key. But the other thing I wanted to ask you is like, now that you've brought in someone to help on the operations, and you've brought in some people to help on the finance, what has that allowed you to focus on that you feel like you're more uniquely suited to do to add value to the business from either a growth or a strategy standpoint?
I think I am very good at putting puzzle pieces together. But to put a puzzle together, you can't be up close looking at just one or two pieces. You have to have the ability to lift yourself above to see all of it together. Um, and I think that allowing people into the organization to work while there are more puzzle pieces at play now with the addition of those people, it gives me an opportunity to see more things. And now where I'm at with it is is how do I lead people? How do I not get in the way, but still make sure that I don't lose what I started? And in some ways that's kind of maybe even more challenging than
Yeah.
doing it all yourself, you know?
Yeah, but that's also, that's also where where you can actually really open up scale, right? Like I mean, I understand what it's like to be you in many ways because I was on the founding team at Guardian Bikes when it was just the three of us. And I also was the first person. I started Free to Grow originally before I partnered with my partner Jeff by myself. And so I've been through a couple times the going from like, you know, being the one that started it and doing everything to like figuring out how to build a team. And I think, what I've found, and imperfectly, we were talking about a LinkedIn post that I posted today that I tagged Anna in actually right before we hit record, which was like, I'm exhausted. Things are going well. They're definitely not perfect, but things are, I'm building what I said I would build, but I'm really tired. And so it's not that it necessarily, I would say it's not that it gets easier, at least in my opinion. It doesn't get easier, but at least I can spend more time in the areas where I think I was destined to spend time, right? There's like few things that are more frustrating as an entrepreneur than getting sucked into doing an activity or activities that take a lot of time, knowing you're not built for that. I've been there so many times and like, I'm not built for this and I can't believe that took 2 hours of my day. And I still have to get to the things that I can actually uniquely add value to, right? I haven't even gotten to that. And so, yeah, it doesn't ever end, but it maybe you get a sense that what you're doing is more aligned to your true purpose. I actually want to ask you about the personal side of all of this with like being a mom. It's something that you and I um, share in common, having three little kids while trying to grow a business. What are some of I mean, I'll start by saying it's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I totally underestimated how hard this is going to be. I'm just going to be straight up. Like, I don't know why I thought it was going to be any easier. It's way harder than I thought it was going to be. It's amazing, full of blessings, but it's insane. What are some of the rhythms or disciplines that you imperfectly do and try to stick to balance your very important job of being a mom of three little kids, but also being the CEO of a growing brand?
You know, um, I think each one of my kids um, has come along with me to different things in the business. Like they are integral stories to this business. I started Redland Cotton in 2016 and I had my first child in 2018. And I wasn't making any money and she stayed home with me that first year of her life. Um and I worked on Redland Cotton during the hours that she slept and at night. And I remember as she was getting older, like maybe she was 13, 14 months. And I looked at my husband, I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. And I think it's like that was just another point where like I can't do it anymore. I have to have some help. I'm going to start paying myself some more so that we can get some childcare. But I mean, she came to Washington, D.C. with us when we got invited to the White House. She was on photo shoots, just, wearing the baby. She was driving back and forth to Moulton with me. Like she's been a little warehouse kid, and now like she loves to hang out with the cut and sew people. She loves to they're teaching her how to do a sewing machine. Um, y- and she's 7. Like that's such an amazing, like who else has that? Um, same for my other 2 kids. Like they have just been at photo shoots and you just do the thing with them. And that is very hard, but also there is no other job in the world that I have the flexibility that I have doing this and also being their parent. And I I make up for it working at night, but like I know that I wouldn't be able to do some of the things that I get to do with them if I weren't doing this. But man, it is so hard. But it gives you perspective, Like when
Totally.
you think things are going really bad in your business or something like that, um, it jolts you back to reality and what matters.
Man, I actually, we have a lot more in common in that regard than, you may realize. It's like, it's this crazy, the reason why I thought it was important to talk about this is because, like, look, there's so much content out there that, like, glamorizes scaling a business. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I've been in the DTC world for a long time, but I've helped grow several businesses in different industries. And on the inside, none of them are glamorous. And that's why you have to find your purpose. I'm really not trying to be like some sort of a cheesy like pep rally like cheerleader about that. I've actually learned out of necessity. And for me, God taught me through having kids. You have to find your purpose, because that's when you go like, I can't give up, right? And the more and more I do this, the more that I find it's not about timing the game. It's about time in the game. And, I think in the D2C world, you and I, and probably everyone listening to this podcast, was a part of D2C in a really interesting time, COVID, a
Mm-hmm.
time that, like, maybe it'll never happen. We'll never see a time like that ever again. Not that there's not prosperity to be had, but we'll never see that kind of a bubble, the way it happened, how quickly it happened, to the magnitude it happened, probably ever again, right? And I think that so many brands sold during that time and made a killing, and they just got lucky that they timed that. But that's not the real world. The real world of business is do something meaningful, right? That makes a meaningful difference in people's lives and in the market, and do it for as long as you can do it and feel like you're fulfilling your purpose, and the prosperity comes along the way. And that's the reality of business. You know what I mean?
I totally agree. I don't think either of us are running our businesses for some sort of exit or or anything like that. I was asked on some other conversation I was having about community impact and how important that was to Redland Cotton. And, you know, we're over 50 employees now, and a majority of those employees are in southern Mississippi and rural Alabama. And that matters to those communities. And those are manufacturing communities that had a lot of jobs taken away. And that purpose, I don't think it was the reason we started Redland Cotton, but that is something that keeps me going. Um, the manufacturer that makes our blankets has been able to double their workforce since we started working together in 2018. And that might just be going from 10 people to 20 people, but that means something. And that is the reason we are making things here and doing it the way that we're doing it, um, is so that we can lift everybody up through this.
I love that. No, it's true. So it's funny. We have a secondary, and I call it an internal mission, that we created about 8 months ago at Free to Grow. I didn't know we were on this mission when we started, but we have about 15 people or so that work for the business now. And I started noticing a pattern, which is that most of our employees are people around-ish the same age as me with little kids,
Mm-hmm.
who, this is what, and I put it into words, and I remind the team of this every quarter when we review our plan for the quarter, that our internal mission is that we're building a place where talented finance and accounting professionals can enjoy fun, challenging, impactful work, but not sacrifice their personal health, right? And it doesn't mean we don't work hard, but, like, we don't frown upon, we champion the people who work here being good parents, being present parents, right? And but that doesn't mean that we need to sacrifice the challenge and the fulfillment of our work either, right? Those things don't have to be trade-offs. We can get both of them. And that's important. Whenever I have a rough day, I always remember that, like, we're here to help our clients sleep easier at night, and we are here to give our team members a better life. And actually, funny enough, I don't think you know this. I'm also I'm a real estate investor. I've been into real estate investing for a long time. I have like a small single family like real estate portfolio, and it's in central Mississippi. And people always ask me, they're like, "Why are you investing in Mississippi?" And I'm like, "I found these two little small towns. There's cash flow. I know so many people there now. I've been doing it for a little bit, and like everyone knows everyone. So like I'm given our contractor work, and we've become friends. I've become friends with our agents and our property manager, and met a lot of other people in the community through them. And it's not if you go research the big sexy real estate markets, like there's some in the Midwest and the Northeast that are like going crazy right now. It's not that, but it's like it matters to the people that are in the community that we're investing in. And so I've actually many times been like, oh, should I go to one of these hotter markets? And I just am like, you know what? This isn't all just about sucking every penny of, profitability out of this. Like, I've actually started to focus my strategy on like buying places that are affordable so I can offer affordable rent in a season where housing is unaffordable historically. And the people in this central Mississippi area outside of Jackson, they're like, this unaffordability is like, it's affecting them way more than it's affecting people in Austin, Texas, where I live. And so I think that's a part of my faith journey where like God uses my faith in business is like, yes, you need to be profitable because that makes it self-sustainable, like it makes it sustainable. But
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to optimize for that at the expense of the impact that it makes, right? And I also just think there's this beautiful thing, like when you do it for long enough, it does end up being prosperous enough, right? Like, and so anyways, I share that sentiment with you more than you know.
Um, no, it's very I enjoy I'm I guess a mutt in this way. Like I enjoy the big cities and I enjoy the little rural towns. Um, and I think that like growing up on a farm, but also living in big cities has given me a really unique perspective. But I think investing in those communities, they appreciate it more than you know. Like the town of Tylertown, when they were courting Redland Cotton to come to their town, like the hospitality was just through the roof. Um, if the city of Austin probably did what they did, who knows?
For sure.
Who knows what they could do?
Okay, so I have two final questions for you as we kind of come to a close here. The first one is, what do you see as the biggest challenges that lie ahead for Redland Cotton over the next couple of years?
Um, I think meeting the growth with our supply chain is going to be crucial for us, and I think that is going to require some strategic hiring on our part. Um, and and then I kind of touched on it earlier, but I think me just learning how to be a better leader, um, and get the right people in the right places to help the business grow, I think is what comes next. Um, and that's just going to be it's a muscle I haven't exercised yet. So there's going to have to be a lot of workouts in my future, I think, on that
That's
regard.
exactly. We'll be right there with our financial model to help you understand
Yes.
the financial impact of all those decisions. Look, my final question, and I'm sure that there's some overlap with some things we've already talked about, but what's the most important purpose-driven outcome that you hope to create with the work that you do over the rest of your lifetime?
It's impacting affecting communities. I think that I've seen it in the growth of Redland Cotton over 9 years and I call it the proof of the American dream. We had this dream that was really, capitalistic, in focus, which was to get a better profit off of a pound of cotton. And what we've been able to do is lift up communities and create jobs, and impact people with a product that is impacting other people down the line. Um, so it really is that people impact, and then I just feel such a sense of responsibility over that. Every time we add a head or um, work with a new partner, every time that there is a new PO written, like that responsibility is heavy on me, because at the end of the day, I'm responsible for whether it's successful or not. And the success drives the outcomes. And, I think I'm in this moment where I'm just hoping I live up to that.
I love it. Well, we're grateful to be on the team and
Y'all are
to be
great.
helping. Thank you. That was not the point of having you come on the show, but we're grateful to work with you. We appreciate not just the opportunity, but not just the opportunity to work with you, but the opportunity to just over time every single month make another improvement, right? And get a little bit closer to where we want to see the finances and the management of data and all of that good stuff. And so we appreciate it more than you know, and we're excited for the future of our partnership. And before we do come to a close, where can people find more information about Redland Cotton?
Yeah. You can go to redlandcotton.com at any time. You can find us on Instagram at redlandcotton. And you can find me on LinkedIn. My name is Anna Brakefield. Same on Instagram. And I love to connect. I love to connect with other founders, and the more community, the better. We're all feeling the same thing.
Well, like I said in my LinkedIn post today, we're all in the same boat. We got to remember we're all in the same boat. I was out on the lake last weekend listening to Zach Brown Band, and his song "We're All in the Same Boat" came on, and I was like, yeah, man, I gotta hang out with my people more often.
Yes.
So, well, thank you so much for coming on, Anna, and thank you for being open and candid about your journey. And it's always a pleasure to chat. And yeah, I'm just really, really grateful for you.
Thank you, Jon.
All right, everyone. Well, this one was chocked full of nuggets. You might want to listen to it a second time, especially if you're considering how you're making an impact in the community with your business. And also, there's plenty of brands out there who are thinking about or already involved in some amount of manufacturing. And so, hey, you heard Anna. She said reach out to her. Maybe you can mastermind a little bit on U.S. manufacturing. So thank you all for listening. Don't forget, if you like today's episode, please hit the subscribe button. It's really important because hitting the subscribe button or leaving us a review, it helps us reach more people like you. And our goal is to help as many brand founders as we possibly can. Also, if you want more tips on scaling a profitable D2C brand, follow me, Jon Blair, on LinkedIn. And if you're interested in learning more about how Free to Grow can help your brand, check us out at freetogrowcfo.com. Until next time, scale on.